Okay, I guess we're going to call our meeting to order. Everybody's ready to go. If you can't find a seat, we have standing room in the back. Okay, a roll call by our Assistant City Clerk, Amanda Lee.
Let the record reflect all members are present.
Our Pledge of Allegiance will be led tonight by Councilmember Aguilera.
Please join me in honoring our nation's flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our invocation tonight will be by Carol Sanford, the president of Brother Benno's Auxiliary. Welcome.
Almighty God, we ask your blessings as we gather here today to discuss the issues before the Vista City Council. Give all who are present here, the council members, the city residents, and any other concerned citizens who come to participate in this forum, an open mind and open heart so that they may each see the path to resolution for whatever comes before them this day. Guide all parties in taking the necessary steps forward, keeping the city of Vista a safe and friendly place for all its residents and its many visitors. Bless those who provide life-saving and life-giving services, including our children's educators as well as our military, uplifting and protecting us each day, preserving our freedoms, and inspiring us to be the best that we can be, not only now, but for our future generations. As we work together under your guidance, Lord, may we gain support from each other and lead our community to even greater success in meeting the needs of all who find themselves in this amazing city of Vista, California. God bless America. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to the Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. The next thing is the approval of the agenda by our City Manager, Patrick Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no changes this evening.
And there were no closed sessions scheduled, and so I will go right to our presentations, and we have actually two proclamations and a presentation tonight. So I'll come down and do the two proclamations, and I will be right there. Hi. Our first proclamation is a proclamation declaring the week of May 15th to May 21st to be Public Works Week. And Chuck Chris, Public Works Director, and Joshua, is it Santa Cruz, management analyst, they're going to meet me at the podium, which they already are here, and they're going to accept the proclamation. So let me get it here, and I'm going to read it. Open it up so the pretty side shows. There's this. Okay, and let me read it here. So, whereas the year of 2016 marks the 56th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Public works infrastructure provided within our community is an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives. Whereas the support of an informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works, such as sewer, storm drain, and park maintenance, tree trimming, graffiti abatement, street repair, fleet maintenance, and solid waste collection. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of our great community depends upon these services, this year's American Public Works Association theme, Public Works Always There, presents a reminder of the numerous ways public works contributes to the quality of life for Vista residents and the businesses, and the dedication of the public works professionals that work under challenging conditions to provide these services. Whereas public works projects and services provide significant quality of life and social benefits, fulfilling some of the basic elements of a civilized society and supporting our nation's economic health. So now, therefore, the mayor and members of our city council do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th, 2016 to May 21st, 2016 as Public Works Week in the city of Vista. So congratulations on that, on the Public Works Week. Did you want to say anything? Oh, sure. Okay, come on over. You want to do it in front? In front's better than.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're very appreciative of this recognition on behalf of the 58 employees that work in our department. We're very thankful again for recognizing the Public Works employees and all their contributions. We'll be sure to hang this in a prominent place and share this with them tomorrow morning. And again, it's an honor to work for the City of Vista. Thank you.
Thank you. We're very happy to have you. So thank you. The next proclamation is a proclamation declaring the week of May 8th to May 14th, 2016 to be Economic Development Week, and the year 2016 to be the Year of the Economic Developer. So Kevin Ham, who's right here, is going to accept the proclamation. I'll let you open it up to the pretty side, okay? And I will read the proclamation here. Okay, whereas the Internal Economic Development Council is celebrating its 90th anniversary in 2016, and whereas the International Economic Development Council is the largest professional economic development organization dedicated to serving economic developers. Economic developers promote economic well-being and the quality of life for their communities by creating, retaining, and expanding jobs that facilitate growth, enhance wealth, and provide a stable tax base. Whereas economic developers stimulate and incubate entrepreneurism in order to help establish the next generation of new businesses and jobs, which are the hallmark of the American economy. Economic developers are engaged in a wide variety of settings, including rural and urban, local, state, provincial, and federal governments, public-private partnerships, chambers of commerce, universities, and a variety of other institutions. And whereas economic developers attract and retain high-quality jobs, develop vibrant communities, and improve the quality of life in their regions. Whereas economic developers work in the City of Vista within the state of California, and therefore the mayor and members of our Vista City Council commend the International Economic Development Council and its officers, staff, and members on its 90th anniversary, and hereby proclaims the week of May 8th as Economic Development Week, and the year 2016 as the Year of the Economic Developer. And so I'll let Kevin Ham, maybe he would like to say a word, and he is our CalEd president, outgoing president, right? Yes. So how much longer do you have?
I have another year and a half.
Oh, we're not outgoing yet.
Well, I wanted to say thank you to the mayor and council for your vision and support of economic development. And economic development is really best carried out in partnership with others. And when Chuck was talking about his staff of 52 or 54, we have 2 in economic development. And we can't do economic development without the support of others. And I have to say, from a customer service standpoint, all of the departments in our City of Vista provide great customer service. The department heads are part of the team that assist us. And I always like to call out those that really help us. So in particular, John Conley, John Meyer, Chuck Christ as department heads really help us fulfill the mission of economic development. So I'd like to recognize them as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, we have to picture. Okay. Okay, and so now Matt Sanford, our San Diego Regional Economic Development Corporation, is here to provide us with an update regarding Innovate 78. So welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I think it's been about 6 months since the last time I was here, so it's good to see you all. It's been a fairly productive 6 months, and we've been excited to keep going on the Innovate 78 initiative and look forward to future years of this as well. So just to provide a brief update and a reminder, so what is Innovate 78? It's a collaboration between the 5 cities along the 78 corridor, targeting businesses for expansion, attraction, and retention, as well as talent for development and expansion of our talent and attraction of talent to the 78 corridor as well. In doing so, we hope to make the 78 corridor and the city's much better places to live. They already are great places to live. We know that. We want to make sure that everybody knows that. So the three broad goals: business retention, expansion, and and attraction, talent attraction, and university business alignment. That manifests often in working with Cal State San Marcos, Mira Costa College, Palomar College, some adult working groups, et cetera, to ensure that as companies operate here along the 78 corridor, the pipeline of talent is there and ready for those companies as they continue to grow. So what we've done, you may remember this slide. These were the things that we were set out to do on the branding side. And if you recall, we kind of break this initiative into two different halves, a branding side and an economic development side. So on the branding side, and then there's the things that we've achieved. So the Innovate78.com website has had more than 24,000 views. Those are unique views. We have had 17,000 Twitter impressions, more than 3,000 Facebook impressions. We've developed hard collateral. I believe you saw that at the last council meeting where I presented. We have had hits, earned media hits in 15 local media outlets, including the UT, KUSI. KUSI was our last on their morning show just 2 weeks ago with Mayors Hall and Abed representing and talking about the initiative, as well as developing content. You saw the Solitude video. We are developing video content from businesses from each of the cities to talk about what it's like from their perspective operating here along the 78 corridor. So with that, I don't have another video to show you yet, but it's something that we'll continue to push. On the economic development goals, we set out to host roundtables, support companies, develop an RFI response packet that was unique to the 78 corridor, common tools, and then, of course, engage partners. And we've done that. So we've so far hosted 3 industry roundtables with a 4th planned in June. Targeting developers along with the cities here along the 78 corridor, so we can hear from a developer perspective, where things are going really well, and from their perspective, where there's still some issues and challenges. We know development can be controversial, but it's better to be aware of what they're thinking as well. We have supported over 145 companies. That's impacting more than 11,250 employees. Specifically in Vista, we've had 43 project companies with nearly 1,800 impacted employees. We've had 6 attraction projects to the 78 corridor. Some of those are still in process, and so we don't necessarily know the result of that, but there are at least 6 projects that are interested in opening doors here along the 78 corridor. And partner engagement, so we have engaged with the Chambers of Commerce, with the North EDC, with trade organizations, with resources such as Cal State, such as our educational partners, to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to keep going. I have a list of other accomplishments, if there are any questions. And with that, I'd love to take your questions and talk a little bit about what's next.
So do I have any questions from everybody? Seeing none, I guess we'll say thank you. Keep up the good work.
Great, thank you.
Keep us informed, and we appreciate it. Thanks for coming up tonight. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to our next thing is our consent calendar. On consent is items C1 through C11. The recommendations on the consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar. Any member of the public can remove an item by submitting a request to speak card to the clerk secretary. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following the adoption of the calendar. So with that, I'm looking for anybody have anything they want to remove from the calendar. I'm seeing nothing at this point, so then I would entertain a motion. Councilmember Aguilera.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Would the city
That
clerk...
motion passes unanimously, except I see I have... Did you push your button? Did you what? Okay, Councilmember Rigby, or Deputy Mayor Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If the city clerk could please register my no vote on C3.
And would the city clerk please note my no vote on C3?
Okay. Okay, with that, then we will be moving on to our discussion items. Items scheduled for discussion generally require a detailed explanation by our staff or the agency member that has requested the item. And tonight we have 3 discussion items. The first one is our draft fiscal year 2016-17 operating budget, and Allie Zimmerman, Assistant City Manager, is going to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Allie Zimmerman, Assistant City Manager. With me tonight is Laura Johnson, our Senior Budget Analyst, and she will be presenting the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The purpose of this discussion item is to review the draft operating budget and receive direction from City Council prior to presenting the final budget on June the 14th. The draft budget was provided for your review 2 weeks ago. Staff began preparing the operating budget for fiscal year 2016-17 last fall. Revenue estimates were prepared, and based on available resources, a spending plan has been devised that we feel best meets the needs of the residents and the businesses of the city. We will continue to refine the budget before the final presentation. The agenda report provided a broad overview of all funds, but especially of the general fund. This presentation will begin with a review of general fund revenue and expense estimates, and will end with a discussion of 7 major spending categories. The operating budget is $125,189,404. It is accounted for in almost 20 funds, most of which are restricted by law as to the type of activity for which the money can be spent. As this slide visually illustrates, unrestricted monies, or general fund monies, which are shown in green, fund the bulk of the city's expenses, including, for example, all of public safety. Restricted monies, or non-general funds, shown in blue, are a major funding source for certain kinds of activities. Most of public works, for example, is funded by non-general funds. The first area to be reviewed will be general fund revenue and resources. Page 17 of the budget document provides a summary showing historical data as compared to the proposed 2016-17 revenues. All revenues are estimated in detail early in the budget process and are evaluated several times before being approved by the city manager. The general fund revenue and resources are estimated to be $72,312,951. This includes $66.8 million in new revenue, is shown in the chart on the green line, and an additional $5.5 million from other sources, including a beginning fund balance of $1.5 million. A majority of revenues come from just a few sources. We have estimated property taxes at $19.9 million, sales tax at $17.2 million. Charges for services are estimated at $10.9 million, and franchise fees are estimated at just over $3.5 million. The remaining general fund revenues are made up of a variety of sources as shown on the slide. Are there any questions regarding revenue?
Councilor Aguilera.
I noticed that the property tax and sales tax both went up by 5.2 and 5.4%. I was just wondering where we got those numbers and if that's something, I mean, apparently you're comfortable with, but I just want to know, I guess I want to be comfortable with those numbers. Is that what we increased by last year too, or do we have some expectation that the values of properties will go up by that much and our sales tax will go up that much?
The 2 different resources are estimated using different factors. For property tax, we specifically use the county assessor's reports for assessed valuation, resale, and then something we refer to as the Proposition 8 recapture, which is properties that had been given relief during the recession when their values were lowered. The relief of a lower value for your property tax assessment was only for a few years, so they come off the rolls each year. The county assessor provides us with estimates, and they have proven to be fairly accurate over the years. Sales tax, we rely on not only our prior year actuals and what we're seeing trending in the current fiscal year, but also our sales tax consultant will provide us with their estimated revenues and resources based on the research that they do.
Okay. Yeah, the sales tax was probably the one. I figured the property tax would probably be very accurate. The sales tax was the only one that concerned me a little bit, just because it seemed high, the increase. Okay.
Proposition L half-cent sales taxes are another component of general fund revenue. Proposition L revenue is estimated for 16-17 at just under $7.6 million and will be able to fund $1.2 million of fire salaries through the term of the bonds. A detailed overview of Proposition L will be provided in the next discussion item. The last element of revenue I would like to bring to your attention is the use of reserves. These monies are not part of the emergency reserves held by the city. These are monies that were set aside in prior fiscal years and reserved to fund future expense, such as facility improvements, vehicle replacement, and Proposition L debt service. Page 24 provides additional detail. As shown, just under $150,000 in general fund reserves will be used this year. This is far less than the 2015-16 amount of $2.1 million because there are no vehicles to be purchased using general fund reserves in 2016-17. Before we move to a discussion of expenses, this slide shows a comparison of general fund revenues to expenditures. As you can see, all the city's sales and property tax categories are needed to fund public safety costs. The next area to review will be estimated expenses. Page 19 of the budget provides a summary showing historical data as compared to the proposed 2016-17 expenses. General fund expenditures are projected to be $64,823,791. An additional $7,438,164 is needed for transfers out to pay debt service and to fund subsidies to non-general fund budgets, including $311,063 to the Senior Nutrition Program, $275,000 to the Lighting and Landscape Maintenance District, and $381,603 to the Wave Water Park. This brings total general fund expenditures to $72,261,955, with funding of $72,312,951 in available revenue and resources. The June 30th, 2017 ending fund balance is projected to be $50,996. Are there any questions?
Any questions on that from the council? Seeing none, go ahead.
For the remainder of this presentation, we will be looking at expenditures. The budget document is broken out to 7 spending categories. The first page of each category lists goals for the coming year. Individual line item expenses can be reviewed throughout the budget document. While staff has consistently managed expenditures, there are several areas of expense that the city has limited or no control over. These include pension costs, minimum wage increases, prevailing wages, and fuel costs. Vista has always been a lean city. After the pain of the most recent recession, we have worked very hard at maintaining a lean budget while continuing to provide needed services. By and large, the 2016-17 budget is very similar to the 15-16 budget. Much of what will be discussed in relation to expenses are how the 16 budget differs from the 15-16. General government, which provides leadership and administration for the city, is the first category of expense we will review. A summary of this category can be found on page 66 of the draft budget. General government expenses are approximately 12% of the general fund and total $8 million. There is no significant changes to the category of general government, which is entirely accounted for in the general fund. Are there any questions regarding the category of general government?
Any questions regarding the categories? Seeing none? Go ahead.
A summary of the public safety expenses can be found on page 108. This section includes law enforcement, school safety, and fire services, including emergency medical services. Public safety accounts for approximately 64% of the general fund expenses and totals to $41.2 million. It requires all of the city's tax revenue to fund just this area of expense. Are there any questions regarding public safety?
Any questions? Nope, I don't see any.
The summary of community development budget units can be found on page 150. Community development represents 10.5% of general fund spending. The 16-17 budget includes an additional code enforcement officer and associated costs, including the purchase of a vehicle. As shown by the blue columns in the chart, you can see that non-general fund monies play a more significant role in funding expenses in this category. The size of the sewer administration column is a bit daunting, but this is the budget unit that carries the bulk of spending for sewer services, much of which are paid to the Encina Wastewater Authority. Are there any questions regarding the category of community development?
I don't see any. Thank you.
Redevelopment housing is summarized on page 200. There are no general fund monies used for redevelopment activities, and there is less than $54,000 difference between the 15-16 and 16-17 budgets. Are there any questions regarding redevelopment?
Don't see any.
The summary for Public Works, which is 5% of the general fund expense, can be found on page 218. Total expense for this category is approximately 10% higher than 2015-16. There has been almost $600,000 programmed for capital outlay, including 5 vehicles and CCTV equipment for use on the sewer system. Lighting and landscape maintenance district expenses have gone down as a result of retrofitting streetlights with energy-saving LEDs. However, this is an area of expense that is greatly impacted by prevailing wages, electricity, and water costs. The 16-17 lighting and landscape budget also includes an additional $46,000 for tree trimming and $45,000 for the replacement of light poles in the Shadow Ridge area. As you can see by the blue columns in the chart, a lot of Public Works funding is coming from non-general fund sources. About 41% of total expense in this category is related to the delivery of sewer service. Are there any questions regarding Public Works?
I don't see any questions from them either.
Moving on, 8.6% of general fund expense is related to recreation and community services. The summary for this area of expense can be found on page 272. A recreation coordinator position has been added for the 16-17 budget. Recreation and community service programs will be impacted for years to come as a result of the governor's legislation to increase minimum wage to $15 per hour by the year 2022. A 50-cent increase effective January 1st, 2017 has been budgeted. This added over $32,000 to the cost of temporary salaries. Despite efforts to keep costs down, the senior nutrition program exceeds the approved subsidy level by 25%. As instructed, staff is exploring the option of contracting out meal service to reduce expense. Are there any questions regarding recreation and community services?
Any questions? No, I don't see any.
And the final category of expense, internal services, is summarized on page 308. Internal service budget units exist solely to support and are funded by charges to all other budget units. There's virtually no outside sources of funding. Internal service funds are budgeted at approximately 5% over 15-16. $461,000 of this increase is in the area of information technology, where planned expenses include desktop replacement and an upgrade of the phone system. These expenses will be funded through the use of reserves set aside in previous years for these purposes. Fleet maintenance, which is managed by Public Works, will be replacing 7 vehicles in 16-17. All but one, which will be used by the new code enforcement officer, will be funded by reserves. This non-general fund spending category totals $13.9 million. Are there any questions regarding this category?
No questions.
Well, then, this ends the presentation, and I thank you for your attention. It's been my pleasure to represent the staff who have prepared the 2016-17 operating budget. Please let us know if you have any other comments or questions.
Thank you, and I appreciate all the work the staff did on this. And I see Councilmember Aguilera has a question.
Thank you. I wanted to save my questions because you're on a roll. So.
Okay.
Didn't want to interrupt it. So going back to the beginning, there's a page here. It's page 16, and it talks about sales tax, just kind of a highlight. And it talks about how we receive the city receives 1.5% of sales tax, and then at the very end of the 1.5%, 1% is used for general fund activities. So where does the other 0.5% go?
That's Proposition L.
Okay, so I figured.
Because since the general fund tax, it comes in together, but we separate it.
So that $7.5 million that's down below that, is that a result of that, or how is that? So, well, I guess my question is 17 million 1% of sales tax?
Yes, the 17.1 is the 1% we receive off of sales tax, and then the 7.5 is our estimate for Proposition L. They're not a complete 50-50 since Prop L is a transaction use tax and it's only charged on goods and services purchased within the city or registered within the city. So they don't always track
equate.
50-50.
Okay, well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay. And then this is a minor detail. I don't know. Did you figure this out, Patrick, the Prop L? I've just found a discrepancy on page 52. When we're talking about the net debt service, it has $5,790,755. But then the appendix, when we talk about the actual debt, it has a different figure there. So
the city manager brought that to our attention right before the meeting, and we believe that one of those numbers includes the administrative costs we pay to U.S. Bank to manage the debt service. So what we will do before the final budget is make sure that if it should be allocated on both charts, that it is.
So you can clarify for that. Okay.
Yes.
And then the savings that we have there on Prop L, or it looks like an apparent savings, right? Because last year we were doing a balance transfer. This year it looks like we're doing the opposite. Is that because of the refinance we did last fall?
Yes.
Right. Well, it definitely paid off then. That's good. I think that's pretty much it. I appreciate the work you guys have put in. I know it's a lot of work. And I kind of reviewed this versus our goals, and also with the survey that we did last year, we paid for the citizens. And it seems like we're spending our money in the areas that our citizens want us to, and the City Council has also agreed to set as our city goals. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Franklin?
Looking at Prop L debt service, so our Prop L revenues are going to go up, right?
They're projected to, yes.
And I know that our minimum debt service payment has been reduced by the refinance. But one of the things that I want to continue to make a point of is particularly the opportunity where we've been making a debt service payment, like if we were paying our mortgage and we refinanced our mortgage and our mortgage bill went down, from $1,500 down to $1,400, why couldn't we keep making the $1,500 payment and get that debt paid back faster? I don't know. What am I missing there?
Well, I think the next item, which is the third quarter report, we're going to walk through Prop L in detail and talk about the potential for paying down that debt earlier and what that means.
Okay.
So I think if we're done with the budget, we can move on to the third quarter report, and then we can have a more detailed discussion on Prop L if you'd like.
One question I'd like to ask, and I don't expect you maybe have an answer to it right now, but I hope to get an answer to it, is can we see what the increased cost of labor is and how that number increases from the last fiscal year to the next one, and also non-labor expenditures, so that we can gauge what our non-salary and wage expenditures, how they're increasing? Would that be something that would be?
We have it in the budget.
It is included in the budget. There's an expenditure summary on pages 50 and 51. Pardon? It does not compare prior years, but we can provide last year's budget with the same number. We line out all of the different spending categories, professional services, employment, stuff
I'd like to understand what our non-wage, non-salary increase in spending is.
Very little, but we can pull that out for you.
Okay.
So are we ready to move on to the next thing? Okay. So thank you guys, and we'll move on to our next discussion item, which is our fiscal year 2015-16 third quarter financial report. And Lauren Worm, the Finance Director, is going to provide the staff report. Thanks, Lauren.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. The fiscal year 15-16 third quarter report serves as a summary and comparison of budget to actual results. The report includes proposed operating budget adjustments for the third quarter, as explained in Exhibit 2 on pages 11 and 12 of the agenda report. The largest adjustment is for the fire department out-of-area fire suppression, which is an increase in revenue of $285,000. There are no capital budget adjustments proposed at this time. Total 9-month general fund revenues of $42.3 million and general fund expenditures of $43.1 million were both consistent with prior year actual results and within budgetary expectations. Exhibit 1 includes financial and economic highlights. Some notable items include a continued low unemployment rate, with Vista reporting at 4.2% and the county reporting at 4.7%. Sales tax and property tax actuals are tracking nicely and coming in above budget. The 2-year Treasury note investment yield is trending at a slight increase over the past year, but it has been showing a slight decline since year end. Today's rates are 0.72%. There does not appear to be another federal funds rate increase in the very near future. At the City Council goal-setting workshop on March 1st, 2016, questions were raised about the history and mechanics of Prop L. This agenda report includes a summary of the 30-year half-cent sales tax that voters approved in 2006 and enacted in 2007. Ask meetings, which stands for Attend, Share Ideas, and Know Your Community, were held in 2005 and 2006, and several community priorities were identified. A variety of projects and services were noted in the ballot language to help provide funding for general fund activities. Additional public safety personnel at $1.2 million has been contributed to fire since the inception of the Prop L sales tax revenue measure. Also, repair of sidewalks, streets, and potholes, and other general services such as landscaping, parks, and community services. Historically, no Prop L funds have been used for these purposes. Capital projects that were noted in the ballot language and approved by the council included the construction of the Civic Center, as well as an emergency operations center, 2 new fire stations and a complete remodel of 1 fire station, community sports park, and the Moonlight Amphitheater. In November 2007, future Prop L sales tax revenues were pledged with the bonds issuance of approximately $117 million, specifically for those capital projects in the ballot. The available proceeds were fully spent on the financing of those capital projects. Due to historically low interest rates in 2015, the city was able to refund those bonds at a lower interest rate, which were replaced with the new issuance of approximately $96 million, presenting cumulative cash flow savings of over $22 million. These debt service savings now allow the city to pay the $1.2 million fire contribution through the life of the Prop L sales tax measure 2037. So previously, the model projected a contribution that funded through 2021. Current projections of Prop L sales tax revenues through 2037 and the fire contribution through 2037 results in a surplus of $6.9 million, which may be used as directed by the City Council for general fund activities. Based on current projections, a few scenarios were selected and calculated to assess the impacts on the general fund. The current 2015 bonds are subject to optional redemption in whole or in part any date after May 1st, 2025. Paying down the bonds in 2025 and repealing the tax in 2025 would result in a general fund deficit of $80.3 million. Repealing the tax and paying down the bonds 1 year early in 2036 would result in interest savings of $500,000. However, the city would lose $11 million in revenue and would require a general fund contribution of $3.6 million. Reducing the fire contribution by $100,000 for the last 12 years, so starting in 2025, which would basically serve to slowly wean the general fund off from the additional tax, the city would lose $7.8 million in revenue, and we would end in a net ending surplus balance of $14.7 million. Repealing the tax and paying down the bonds 1 year early in 2036 and reducing the fire contribution by $100,000 for the last 12 years, the city would lose a net $18.3 million in revenue and would end in an ending surplus balance of $4.2 million. Historical documents are provided as Prop L exhibits, which are summarized on pages 5 and 6 of the agenda report. This includes official ballot language and the City Council-related ordinance and resolutions. A summary schedule, including the current Prop L balance, is included with the quarterly reports, which is in Exhibit 1, to keep the Council apprised of the current balance, which is $4.3 million surplus. The recommendation is to receive and file the fiscal year 2015-16 third quarter financial report, as well as adopt the resolutions to amend the operating budget. Mayor?
Questions? Council? Councilor Aguilera.
Just a quick question. What inflation rate were you using for your projections?
We're using a conservative 2%.
So if inflation went above 2%, those numbers would be a lot different.
They definitely would be. I think with experience, though, when we look at the past recession where it dipped down 30%, I think it's probably a good conservative measure.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Any other? Councilor Franklin, did you have any questions on all that?
Well, I'm trying to understand, because I think you were talking directly to me on some of that. And I understand that the revenue keeps going up and our payments stay level, right?
Correct. We know what our debt service payments are.
Right. So talking about repealing the tax a year early, but the reality is, I mean, the only time that we would repeal the tax is once all the debt service is paid, right?
Correct. I think that's the responsible.
Right. So if we operated under that premise, I mean, the purpose of the tax is to repay the debt, right? We don't have a lot of future excess revenue built in.
I think that's the main priority, but as you're aware, we do have a surplus balance, and the council can choose to direct that spending to general fund activities. Included now is the $1.2 million contribution to fire.
We have the ability, because it's a general fund tax, to do that, but we also have the debt obligation. And I do want to make a point of clarification. As you can see on the chart in front of you with the expense side and the debt service payments, it does go up over time. Currently at $7 million, it'll dip down slightly below that, but then by the end of the maturity of the bonds, it'll be at $11 million.
But when I was probably the only one there when we put this through, and we stated that it would go for only the things that we said we would spend it for, which are the civic center, the new fire stations, and the salaries of the firemen. That's what we said. So even though it says we could spend it on other things, sidewalks, streets, and potholes, our promise to the people was that we would spend it only on those things.
I appreciate that. And I guess my question is, what are the options to take some of the surplus, and at what point in the future does it make sense to start applying some of the Prop L surplus to future, to paying down the debt at an accelerated schedule?
I think that is a relevant question to look at in the future, maybe when we have a little bit more history under our belt and make sure that we're comfortable with the reserves or surplus. The earliest we could start paying is 2025. The debt was issued with the 10-year par call. So we basically don't have the authority right now to start paying anything down early for those 10 years.
And from an internal standpoint, we've talked that probably 2030 is the appropriate time frame to, if the council would like to enter into a discussion like that, to understand really where we're at, where the market's been over the last 13 years, and what our reserve balance is.
Well, I would say that I won't be here in 2030. So, so I would like to leave it to future councils to determine that, because I don't know if we have another recession, the sales tax may dip and we may end up, who knows where we'll end up. So I'll take responsibility for while I'm here on the council, but years out, I don't want to tie anybody's hands or, anybody future council. So that would be. Back
in 2007, when this first went into place, we were estimating that we would receive almost $7 million a year from Prop L. When the recession occurred, I think our low point was $5.1 million in terms of revenue. So we definitely want to make sure that we do keep that reserve level there so we can weather any sort of future storms and we don't get into trouble with that.
Do we have a segregated account for the Prop L surplus? We do, right?
Correct.
So
within the general fund, but it's tracked separately.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's never too early to start. So where are we at? What are we going to increase our? If we can't increase our debt service payments, are we increasing our contribution to that specific Prop L reserve fund?
So it's cumulatively adding up in the surplus account. So what's on the screen right now is a good example to show that when revenues exceed expenditures, that surplus balance is going to continue to get larger.
And right now, we're putting the entire delta between Prop L revenue and Prop L debt service. That's 100% of it's going into. Okay.
That is correct. We would not spend additional money without council direction.
Right. So 2025 is essentially, if we paid back early, we're bound under our contract to pay the interest through 2025.
That's correct.
Right. Okay.
That's okay. Councilor Aguilera. Oh, no, your name is on there. Okay. If that's the case, then do you have enough direction or do you need a motion?
We need a motion.
We need a motion? Oh, we need a motion for the quarterly report to accept that.
I'll move that we accept the quarterly report as presented, and thank you very much for the work you've put into this.
I'll second it.
Okay. Please cast your ballots, and thank you, Lohan, for the update on the Prop L. Do we all vote? Councilman Campbell. There goes. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Our third discussion item is was requested by Councilmember Franklin, so I'll ask him actually to introduce the item.
I appreciate the staff pulling together the notice requirements from surrounding cities. And in thinking, is my opinion that we could be notifying more people and that 500 feet doesn't always go far enough. And in thinking about the proportional increase, if we were to, thinking about back to my geometry classes, as the circle gets bigger, each additional 100 feet is a lot more volume. I think I like what Carlsbad does. It doesn't sound like a big increase, but going from 500 to 600 feet would actually significantly increase the volume and the number of people in the immediate vicinity of every project that are notified. I think, my personal opinion, that we could increase the number of people that we're communicating with about what's happening in their part of the city, and I support that approach to government, which is inclusive and affords the greatest number of citizens the opportunity to be aware of our plans. And I am always delighted and happy when citizens are aware of what we're doing and they come down to share their opinions. And I know that all of the members of the council are always delighted to hear opinions prior to making decisions rather than after. It's always better to understand what people are thinking in advance. So with that, I think that it's what we should do. And so I would make a motion that we change the notification area from 500 to 600 feet.
Okay. Anybody want, John Conley is here to give any information. Did you want him to make a report? Do you have a report you wanted to do? I didn't ask that, sorry.
I didn't put together any report, Mayor. I'm just here to answer questions if any of the council has questions.
Okay, I didn't want to ignore you out there, so okay. Okay, so Councilmember Campbell.
Over the past few years, we've gotten quite a few complaints from community members not being notified of projects. I don't think we want to go to the drastic extreme as other cities, Oceanside. I think the 1,500-foot radius, that's going to encompass, as Councilman Franklin said, a significant volume increase. But I do think that expanding it out a little bit incrementally is not a bad idea at all. And I do want to thank staff for the current system that we have on our city website for upcoming development projects. That's a very easy system to use, has the map of the entire city, the proposed projects, the applications that have been put in. So that's something that I think we can market a little bit more through city newsletters, email, and continue to allow community members to have easy access to those projects that are upcoming. Because to be quite honest, mailing someone something in the mail is very easy for them to overlook, and they don't necessarily open it and quite see exactly what the project is. Those legal notifications sometimes can be a little bit confusing. So I think that the more we can do to also increase access and awareness of that online system allows people to see not only the projects that are upcoming within their immediate community, but the entire city. So I would second your motion.
Deputy Mayor Rigby, I have a speaker. Do you want to hear the speaker and then speak, or would you just like to talk right now? Okay. Cliff Kaiser.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The issue about public noticing is much more than the geographic radius that mailed out notices get sent. As Mr. Campbell noted, that these cryptic messages that arrive in the mailbox often get tossed with junk mail. And it's the purpose and the goal, I think, of the council and the city to communicate with its citizens and say, this is what we are planning, this is what we are thinking about, what is your thoughts on this effort? And with today's communication methods available, I've mentioned before, and you are all very well aware of them, social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, websites, email, broadcast email. The city needs to do a much better proactive effort to reach out to the community and say, this is what we think, this is what we're planning. And the most recent example, which you're very aware of, was the archway sign on South Santa Fe, Paseo Santa Fe. There was a great effort, and I think it's a beautiful sign. I thank you for the efforts that you've done there on South Santa Fe. But the community was surprised by what the results were. And that's not going to be solved by a 600-foot radius. That has to be solved by a more proactive engagement with the community. How do I reach out to my citizens? How do I ask them what their thoughts are? How do I get their feedback? So I don't know how you put that into an ordinance, but I think that's an effort that needs to be engaged. You need to be able to reach out to the community and say, this is what I'm thinking about, this is what I think you want, and this is what I'm going to do, so that when the Paseo Santa Fe Arch goes up, you don't get 3,000 members of the community saying, we don't want it. Thank you.
I think that we do all the social media. We do all I can think of, and we also send our little booklet out, and we sent, I can't remember the name of the book. What's the name of the book?
Well, we have our Vista, we have Facebook, we're
Yeah,
on
Facebook,
Twitter, we have
Twitter.
an Instagram account.
Yeah, and the Vista Press online sends stuff out. UT has, it's kind of a lot of people don't read that, I don't think, in this North County, so it's hard. We don't have a newspaper that goes out daily, but I think we make an effort to do that. I think so. Anyway, Councilmember Aguilera.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, but just kind of address the last speaker. Because I know the Paseo Santa Fe sign caught some off guard, but we did mail to every household, if I'm not mistaken, our Vista magazine, which featured the Paseo Santa Fe sign. One of the things that when I first was elected, I looked at that magazine and thought it was a great opportunity. I used to work for a marketing company, so I thought it was a great opportunity for the city to market themselves, educate the public. And so Patrick Johnson and I discussed, putting some of this stuff in that magazine because it goes out to every house, such as Paseo Santa Fe sign. But we also talk about sewer projects that we're doing. We talk about, obviously, rec programs that are coming up for the fall or the spring or summer. But we also talk about what our tax dollars are being done. So I think, we're doing a pretty good job in that. And as the mayor said, we do use a lot of the social media methods as well. And a lot of this stuff is also posted on our website. So I think we're doing a pretty good job. Never perfect, certainly can be improved. And if there's ways to improve it, I welcome you to contact staff or myself, and we can discuss that. I have questions about the specific mailing radius and that. What is it that it costs to mail? Because no one's asked that question yet. Nobody's, asked about how much staff time is required to process this. It'd be great if we could, on every little project, notify the entire city, but that's not feasible. So I'd like to know what it does cost for our mailings and how much staff time that takes, and then, I guess let's start with that.
So typical mailer, so first of all, I just want to clarify, the mailers that we do for public notification are for private development projects. So some of the things that were talked about tonight are capital projects. We don't do notifications for those. These are private applications going through planning. We typically, for a 500-foot radius mailing, we typically have somewhere around 150 to 200 properties that are notified. Those mailers probably take an hour and a half to 2 hours, each time we do one. And, the cost is 50 cents a mailer. So depending on the number, it's, usually $80 to $100, somewhere in there. We budget about $6,000 a year right now for our postage, which is mostly public notification.
And Mr. Conley, we have the early design review process that we do that the mailer goes out for, and then when it goes back to the Planning Commission, a separate mailer is sent. Is that correct?
Correct. So that's another procedure that we instituted this past year is at the onset of an application for multifamily housing, we do an early design review meeting, and the 500-foot boundary is notified at the onset of the application so that there can be a meeting with the Planning Commission, and then again at the end of the application for the public hearing process.
The staff time required, you said, is up to 2 hours. So that's not part of that $6,000. That's just part of...
That's correct. It's administrative time spent doing it, so any increase in the distance will somewhat increase that administrative time.
And if something gets appealed, it needs to go out a third time and possibly a fourth time as well. So, okay. So as far as funding this is just going to be out of city funds then, right? Not the developer?
Well, we've historically in Vista paid for the postage for these mailers. We have a flat fee application program where the developers just pay us a fee for the different types of applications. We don't collect from them or ask them to pay us back for things. It's just you pay us and we handle the application. We could easily institute a reimbursement program for the mailers if we wanted to increase the distance or, add costs. I don't think that's something that really most developers would think is unreasonable, but it's not something that we do right now.
Yeah, it's not really something I think I would be interested in either. I don't think our development would be fair. What does the state require?
A 300-foot radius.
And we're at 500 feet.
Correct.
So I don't think that would be fair to push that off onto the developer either. Okay, thank you.
I do have one more speaker. Is that okay if I do that before I take over? It's Val Brown.
Good evening. How are you? I wanted to first of all thank Councilmember Franklin for putting this issue on the agenda. Our community has been very much affected by the notification process. There was a 221-unit apartment complex that went in to the entrance of our community that the only way I found out about it is one day parked my car across the street and walked over to look at the little sign and called John Conley. And I live probably 3 blocks, not even 3 blocks from there. The only reason I found out about the 101 apartments that were being proposed across the street was Mr. Conley was kind enough to call me, email me, because he knew I was interested. So I do think that this is something, I see this as transparency. I see this as engaging the community. I see this as part of a healthy community. And I realize that the administrative costs may be in addition to a very overburdened department. I know John works very hard, but I wonder what the costs are on the other side when a neighborhood such as ours finds out after the fact that the identity of our community has been forever altered and the parking situation is completely out of control in our neighborhood now. So I would really encourage that. A couple ideas. I don't want to come with problems without solutions. We have signs all over town where we post things that are happening in Vista, either shop local, pump local. Why not like us on Facebook? Let's get our Facebook community really healthy and vibrant. I don't know how many people are on our Facebook community, but I know other cities have run campaigns like that and have as many as 45,000 people on their Facebook page that they can communicate with on a daily basis and get information out instantaneously. And that's a great way to encourage conversation. I do agree that the 3 books that come out a year are very nicely done. Andrea is doing a beautiful job on those. And I do think that maybe we can have a hot topics and really push the fact that we have that beautiful map that community development put together and how to use it. Do you have questions? So I think that those are a couple of things we could do. And the other thing, too, is plain language. There's a whole website called plainlanguage.org, I believe. It's a government website. And it encourages government agencies to take language that's hard to understand, because government does speak its own language, and put it in plain terms that people can understand. So if I got a red flyer in the mail that said, hey, down the street from you, there's a development, and this is what you need to know, I would pay attention to that. If I get something in a white envelope with a piece of paper that has really small print and language I don't understand, I may not look at it. So those are just a couple of things that I think that we can do, and I do think that that applies to when the city is getting ready to sell a piece of land as well, that it would be nice if the public knew ahead of time that that was going to happen, and maybe we could join in the conversation about what the highest, best use of that land is for our city. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate Councilman Franklin bringing this up. I know we tried to have this conversation a couple of years ago, and it didn't really go too far, so I'm glad to be having it again. Talking about the neighborhood over by Breeze Hill and Matagual, and another development a couple of years ago where it was 500-foot notification, it turns out 500 feet, there weren't too many people in that radius. And my thought on this is that a city the size of Vista, we are not a 2 or 3 or even a 10,000 person city with a lot of open space between people. We are 19 square miles with almost 100,000 people in our city, and everything we do in every community affects the entire city. And we've seen this in the Breeze Hill area, particularly the most recent example. 500 feet was not adequate notice at all, the way that development has impacted half of the city at least. Anything we do in the city affects the entire city. The pebble put here moves all the pebbles down the way a little bit in a city the size of ours. And I appreciate going up to 600 feet, but I don't think an additional 100 feet is adequate either by any stretch of the imagination. And I did receive the city manager's email this afternoon outlining what one of our neighboring cities does. And I don't want to put a lot of burden on businesses and developers, because that's not who I am. I don't want to put another barrier to them. But if they're asking us, for example, what's going in Breeze Hill with Avalon and with the current development over there that's under consideration, they are actually asking for, or some other developments asking for rezoning or conditional use or some other things that they have here, land use amendments. I would think that if the developer or the property owner is asking for us to change something that we have already in our ordinance, I am probably not too opposed to asking them to pay the additional administrative fees associated with that, meaning more mailers to outlying areas. So in those narrowly defined instances, I would like to see that we increase our area for notification from 500 to perhaps 1,000. I don't think we need maybe 1,500, but to go double it at least. And in those instances, like I said, ask the developer or the owner of the property that's asking the applicant to pay the additional fee for that. Because I think it is important in our city that we get the word out there as best we can. And as Councilman Aguilera said, we're not perfect. We're always open to ideas to get the information out there. The only thing I would say is that we do have social media presence. We have newspaper articles in multiple newspapers. We have a website. We send letters out to people in the mailbox. So if I get a letter in the mail from the city telling me something's happening and I throw it away, that's my bad. That's not the city's bad. Sometimes we just have to be engaged, and I appreciate people want to come to the table and have a seat at the table, but sometimes we have to get people to actually come to the table. The table can't come to them. So I think that we can do more, perhaps. I'm not sure exactly how to do more. I don't know what other social media outlets there are that we are not already engaged in. I don't know what newspapers are out there that we are not already getting articles in. I'm open to suggestions on that. Perhaps this one step, expanding our notification area, would be one step in the right direction for getting more notice out there. So I would like to support your motion, but 600 feet is not adequate for me. I think it needs to be expanded further than that. And then with some of these additional amendments to go farther. So I don't know if that would be an amendment to yours, 600 feet on a regular, every applicant, but in these special circumstances, it would be 1,000 feet. Would that be something that you'd be willing to consider a substitute or amendment, however that would work?
If I could and I haven't used pi r square in many years, but it is actually a 44% increase in the number to go from 500 to 600. And I know it doesn't sound like an extra 100 feet is a lot, but it's actually a 44% increase in the area of that's covered. And my concern is that we might not find support to. I would love for this to be a consensus item, and it was mentioned that I think Councilmember Campbell made the comment about this being an incremental increase that we could examine again, and I would always be open to that. Hearing some concern and some questions that express some concern about the increased burden, I think it's actually pretty substantial, even though it doesn't really sound like it. It sounds like it's not much, but so I wonder if any of those facts would change your thinking about what we could do on a consensus basis this evening and the direction it would take us in.
No, because living in a particular part of town where an additional 100 feet would not have been adequate at all for the community that has been so heavily and negatively impacted. More of that neighborhood needed to be notified about what was happening. And if we're going to send letters to people's houses, that was an entire neighborhood that needed to get a letter. 100 feet wasn't adequate at all. And then we heard from the neighborhood last year before down in Santa Fe. They got 500-foot letters sent out, but it really didn't go to too many people. But yet that development would have impacted that whole neighborhood as well. So I think an additional 100 feet, you look at how far 100 feet distance is, it's not really that much farther down the road. I think if we really want to make a statement and we really want to reach out more to the community, we have to make a better effort than 100 feet.
Let me hear from some of our colleagues and then ask a few questions of staff, and then I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. So part of what I actually do in my company is for some cities, I actually do notification mailings to entire cities. And those get very, very expensive to do. So I don't think that's something that we're talking about here, even for major projects. But is the volume really loud?
We turned it up because you were away from your mic.
So I think one of the things that we need to do is look at, the project site, how we notify people that drive by there. Our signs are far better than they were 10 years ago when they used to be the little piece of paper stuck to a little wooden stick. So I appreciate the improvements that have been made on that, but they're still very difficult to read. It just says project application, the site. So I know other cities have much larger signs on the actual site itself that says what this project is. You can actually see it. So maybe that's something in conjunction with an increase in the distance with the physical mailings that we're putting out would allow people that live in those communities that may be impacted, but they're 1,500 feet away, 2,000 feet away on a road. When they drive by it, they see that there's a project going forward at that site potentially. So I think a combination of visible signage on the site with an increase, as Councilman Franklin said, it doesn't seem like 100 feet is a lot, but it is a significant volume increase in area covered. So maybe as a compromise between what Deputy Mayor Rigby wants and what I would support is we could go to 700 feet for major projects and then leave it at or 750 feet for the major projects and 500 or 600 for the day-to-day applications that we're currently doing. Would that be something?
What constitutes a major project, in your opinion?
That's what I was going to ask.
Zoning changes, specific plan amendments, general plan amendments. That would be what I would consider a major project. I don't know, if Mr. Conley, if you had anything to add.
I would agree with that.
So is that something that you would be?
Considering that's what I said 5 minutes ago, I'd go with the 600 if we included an increase to 1,000 for these special categories. Then yes, I would agree with what I said 5 minutes ago.
No, I'm asking if you would be agreeable to
700?
750.
750? Because you
like
had said
gam-
700.
I corrected it to 750. Just make it 750 for the major projects.
And 600 for all other applications, raising the 500 to 600. Why not raise the 500 to 750 and then the major applications go to 1,000?
I would not be supportive of that at this time. I think that the amount, because remember, it's not just 600 feet or 500 feet, it's double that in diameter. So it's when we're going from 500 to 1,000, we're not just doubling the number of homes that we're covering. It's substantially greater than that.
I understand that, but the point is getting the notification to the many people who live within that 200 or 300 foot additional space. It might not.
And I don't think that there's ever any distance. This is the challenge. There's no distance which we could reach out to that would encompass everyone that it would be great to notify that that project is potentially moving forward. So I think when you look at what almost all other jurisdictions, I mean, we have some that are doing the 300, which I don't support. Most everybody else has it at the 500 feet. Carlsbad has 600. I think a 750 on a major project is a good compromise without asking the developers to bear an additional cost. I think once we start doing that, then we're going to have to sit down at the table and have another conversation altogether about fee increases on development applications, which I don't want to open that can of worms up at this time.
I don't either.
So if we have consensus that we obviously need to update our regulations, can we give direction? Mr. Conley, do you have idea enough to come back with an ordinance for us to review? An increase plus these special categories for
We have a motion
consideration?
on the floor, actually.
Okay.
If I might,
Yes.
I'm intrigued by your concept of a major change versus a minor one. I also don't want to create mountains of mail about minor changes, and I wonder if you could give me an idea, Mr. Conley, of some changes that are minor in scope, as we've kind of discussed here, that maybe we don't really, because I'm really thinking about the things that are causing citizens to come and want to be engaged in the process. Are there some lesser items that maybe are not the things that I'm thinking about wanting to notify more people of? Maybe it makes more sense to have a sort of a two-tiered notification process. What are your thoughts on that?
I would agree with Councilman Campbell's thoughts on what's considered a major application. The things he mentioned are all legislative changes that the council has full discretion in, so I believe having a wider area of notice is totally justified. That doesn't mean that you're going to notify all the people that are concerned about every project. For example, the Breeze Hill project doesn't include any of those.
Right.
Multifamily seems to be a hot item. We do the early design review for those projects for that specific reason. So we do 2 notices and 2 hearings for those projects. If you wanted to increase notification requirements for those projects, that's probably something the community has the most interest in from my perspective.
Ask a couple of technical questions. Do you send an envelope or a flat mailer when you send these notifications? It's an envelope, right?
Envelope, yes.
Maybe, have you ever taken a look at sending a flat mailer?
Yes, we have done that in the past.
Okay. Particularly now that you can go into so much detail with color pictures and other things on the internet, my thinking might be that it's usually cheaper to send a flat mailer, depending upon specifications, but you may be able to save substantial costs for mailings by using that route and alerting people in a lesser number of words, drawing their attention to an easily found URL on our website where they could find more information and complete information about any proposed project. And that might be, you could even send postcards, really. A postcard that contains 200 characters be enough to alert me a major development is considered in your area. Specifically the building of X number of residential units at the following location. I think there's 3 or 4 or 5 things that need to be said in that notification, but then you could draw people back to the website, the city website, where you could make as detailed a presentation as you like. Might actually be a way to, and those of us who work in mail and communications with the general public know that the less you say, the better you communicate. So maybe that's a suggestion. I like some of the suggestions that I'm hearing here, and I'd be willing to withdraw my motion in favor of having staff receive a sense of the council tonight that we do want to increase the methods that we use to notify the public and invite participation and ask the staff to come back to us with a proposal that's been fully considered.
Deputy Mayor Rigby.
That's from last time, but I agree, and I was going to ask if he would consider pulling his motion in favor of getting more information, including additional information on mailing costs to a wider scope of people. So I appreciate that, and I think that's a great idea.
I would, and I forgot to say that I really agree with Mr. Kaiser's comments, and I'd be remiss if I didn't second them. It's not just about the mailing, it's also about all the methods that we use to contact people and how we do a better job of cutting through the noise, if you will, in how we reach people. It's not that we're not doing a good job, but that we can always do better, and our residents deserve that. So I would withdraw my motion if there's consensus to do that and ask the staff to come back with a fully formed proposal.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and just so you know, for the last few years, I've always thought we didn't quite reach everybody, but it's always how far do you go? And in some areas, there's like more housing, and so how maybe you want to go farther in one area, and the other area has no, it's very hard to determine where that cutoff line will be, so what a big project would affect people. So I've anyway, Councilmember Aguilera, sorry.
No, that's fine. I think I can agree with that as far as staff looking into this a little bit further. Councilman Campbell's idea of 500 feet and 750 feet for major projects, I think, is wise. But I would like to see expense, what it's going to cost, staff time, all that to be considered as well. Sure.
Doesn't the cost, though, depend on, like, if it's a highly populated area with lots of houses or multifamily, or whether it includes some commercial, a lot of commercial?
Sure, yeah.
And
well,
the cost is so
we're going to have to use an average, I guess, right? But I also want to recognize that I think it's a good idea if the signs are getting bigger and better, the yellow signs, but I do agree that sometimes you don't read that. So if there is a way to make that a little bit more legible and to the point, I think that would make sense. And I think Councilman Franklin's idea of a postcard, I don't know why we switched from postcard to letters. Is there history on that, or is just...
I'd have to ask my administrative staff that handles it. We used to do a folded mailer with a sticker on it, and now we do an envelope. I'm not sure what the reason was. I can look into that.
Probably people were more likely to open an envelope than...
We can certainly also look at the postcard. There are other...
If it's cheaper, I'm all for it, as long as it gets more information out and serves its purpose. I know for myself, I received a letter from the city on an adjacent property to me, and I opened it up and got on the phone and wanted to know what was going on. And I was fortunate Mr. Conley took my phone call. Thank you.
And maybe it has to do with the letters that they send can be just printed off on a copy machine, where a postcard, you have to design it maybe and send it and have somebody like Cody print it up, or somebody.
Contract that out versus
Yeah, contract
just
that
doing it
out.
in-house.
Yes, we can't have Cody, but has to somebody to do that. So I'm agreeable with that. But I see we have speakers again. So John, Councilmember Franklin, did you want to say something again?
Yeah, just a couple of more thoughts. I agree. I was going to ask for cost estimates also. I was also going to briefly suggest that we explore EDDM, or every door direct mail, as an option. I don't know if it meets the statutory requirements, but it's perhaps the cheapest postal rate to reach everyone in a given area, and it's something we should look at. And generally speaking, if you use a vendor on a postcard, it's probably, if you shop it correctly, it's probably not going to be more expensive than the staff plus envelope plus. I've spent a lot of time in those cost comparisons, and there's a lot of good ways to save, and a lot of great vendors that you push a button on your internet screen and you never touch the mail, and it goes to who it's supposed to go to. So there's a lot of good options if we're a little innovative. So,
Councilmember Campbell.
I was actually just going to say what you said earlier, which is the rationale for probably why it's in an envelope is it's produced in-house, and the small volume of mail that's frequently sent based on the radius doesn't result in a cost savings. It would probably result in an actually substantial cost increase to contract that out, and a time increase in having that go out. So,
Mayor, if I could, I would like to compliment Mr. Conley and his team, as well as our IT department through GIS, for designing the development project module on our website. It's very detailed. Every project that is in some sort of development process within the city is listed there with the details, the location. You can click on it and get all the information. So there is information on the public. And if the public would like to sign up, as all of you know, we have the e-alert reminders about Planning Commission issues that are coming up, so the public can go to our website and sign up for all the notifications. And there was a comment made about Facebook, and the city has 3,200 followers or 3,300 followers, somewhere in that neighborhood. Not sure that all of them are residents, just like in the recent Facebook messaging that you received. Not everybody was a resident, but we do have about 3,200 to 3,300 followers.
Yeah, maybe we could increase that, to have someone in a campaign to increase that with their that might be a good way to reach the younger people in
And we
the city.
continue to try.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we all done on this one, I think? So with that, we did not have a public hearing tonight, so that brings us to oral communications. And anybody want to start? How about Councilmember Campbell starting? I'll start in the middle this time.
no comments this evening.
Oh. Okay, Councilmember Franklin.
Could I make a request that we include a link to the draft budget for the next fiscal year on the same page that's a splash page for all of our passed and agreed to budgets? I was looking, I have a printed copy like all of us, but I was looking for the online version and spent several minutes looking for it. I think it could be a little easier to find. I also would suggest in our records system that we include that draft along with all the approved budgets, unless there's some reason that we can't do that, and mark it as a draft that's not been approved. Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Rigby.
I have no comments tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Aguilera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I had an opportunity to go to Sandag at the Regional Planning Committee meeting, and had the pleasure of listening to Mr. Conley present, and he presented the Paseo Santa Fe project. And I'll tell you what, we look really good as a city. We got a lot of compliments. John showed an aerial view of Paseo Santa Fe project, and most of the people thought it was a drawing. They thought they didn't think it was real, and it was an actual picture. I'm not sure if it was a Vista Press one or not, but we'll just say it was. But I mean, people were really impressed and came up to me afterwards and wanted to confirm that that was the actual real project because it looked, I guess, pretty ideal to them. So we should be proud as a city, and I think we are, of our project, and I can't wait till we continue to move on with that. And I just wanted to congratulate staff and Mr. Conley on the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have mayor's comments here. The Rhythm and Brews Fest is this Saturday, May 14th in downtown Vista. Information is available at sdrhythmandbrews.com. On Wednesday, May 18th, from 10 to 2, the Vista Fire Department will be providing free 5-minute, hands-only CPR training in the University Town Square Target parking lot located at 1751 University Avenue. Stop by to learn how to save a life. So they'll be doing that on May 18th, on Wednesday. Bike to Work Day is Friday, May 20th. The event promotes riding bike as a viable, environmentally friendly commute choice. You can register at iCommuteSD.com for more information on that. And I know it's still a few weeks away, but I hope everybody's marked their calendar for Memorial Day. The Memorial Day ceremony is going to be here at the Civic Center on Memorial Day, May 30th at 10 in the morning. And we are also excited to have the annual Strawberry Festival downtown on Sunday, May 29th. And a day earlier, May 28th, the Wave Water Park opens for the season. So summer is almost here, and we can't wait to get there, get rid of the May gray, get to the sunny summer. So all of our town has to offer. And then I was just going to do a few things, because usually I never say what I'm doing. Everybody says what they're doing, and I never tell what I'm doing. But I did a few things that were interesting this last couple of weeks, and I just wanted to tell you. I did Habitat for Humanity. It was Girls' Night Out where women build. It was sponsored by Lowe's, and it was really interesting. They were teaching women how to use, I didn't do it, power tools and saws and all the power tools and things, but I thought it was very interesting. And they actually were putting together a house. They were hammering and put together actually the what do you call it, the frame for the house. And so I thought that was very interesting. Brightwood College had a graduation on Friday night, and that was an interesting graduation. They did it at the Moonlight Amphitheater. It was over 1,500 people there. It was a full group. And then another thing in the North County African American Women's Association had their 20th anniversary, and we had a mayor from Compton. Her name was Aja Brown, and she was as the youngest mayor. She's 31, and she's done they had a lot of crime in Compton in that area, and so she's done a whole lot to solve that and bring the crime way down. But she was very interesting for a mayor. So, and then we had the Kiwanis Grape Gatsby, the fundraiser was the other night. I won't go on and on, but anyway, and then we did Unite North County Coastal Mayors Luncheon last week over in Carlsbad. And also we had the National Day of Prayer at the Vista Flagpole last week. And so we had a lot of events going on, which was pretty busy week. And so I thought I would just share that. And so then I will pass it on to you, our city manager, because he has some announcements.
Hopefully all of you have seen the 8 new kites that have gone up in and around our new downtown, not our new downtown area, but downtown with the new kites. We also moved the Freedom Struggle kite over to the Memorial Wall. And I do want to thank Rachel Bell from our Recreation Community Services Department for taking that on at the staff level, as well as the Public Works crew who moved all those kites over the last week, moved the old ones out and the new ones in. Wednesday, May 25th at the Gloria McClellan Adult Activity and Resource Center, they are hosting a free day-long expo that offers activities and free classes to our adult community that services the location. And so that'll be on May 25th, and more information you can get by calling the Senior Center at 639-6160. And I would like to last introduce our new Recreation and Community Services Director, Theron Dykeman. And if Theron would like to come up and just introduce himself to the City Council. Theron started this week on Monday, and so he's been here 2 days, and he's still come back. So we're excited to have Theron. He's got a wealth of experience, and as you know, Bill Fortmuller retired at the end of last year, and so we're happy to have filled the position with Theron. But Theron, if you'd like to say a few words.
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Mayor, council members. It's a pleasure and my honor to be working for the City of Vista. As Patrick said, I made about a 12-hour-plus drive from Boulder, Colorado area on Saturday to Vegas, stayed with some family, got up the next morning and made it here. So I have literally only been in town for a couple of days, but I've been welcomed very warmly. For the City of Boulder, I was the deputy director there, and prior to that, I spent a few years with the Park District up in Bakersfield. So this is kind of a homecoming of sorts for us. So thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Welcome. And I guess with that, City Attorney, do you have anything, Daryl? How about nothing down there? Okay. Okay. With that, we're adjourned then. 7:08.